All right, so today we're diving deep into a topic that's making waves, especially for you UPSC aspirants out there.
Absolutely. And it's one of those events that really forces us to think about global power dynamics. That whole balance between national interest and the need to work together on the world stage.
Speaking of the world stage, we can't ignore what the Hindu is saying about the WHO's, well, somewhat shaky funding situation.
Right. It's definitely a system that seems vulnerable. Like, on the one hand, you've got these assessed contributions. Basically, each country chips in like membership dues, and the U.S., being the biggest contributor, obviously had a lot of say in things.
But then there are those voluntary contributions too, right? It's like you can donate to fight malaria or tackle, what was it, antimicrobial resistance.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where things get interesting because with the US pulling out, well, it's not just about the money they were giving. It's like, will other donors follow suit? Especially those who usually side with the US. And then what happens to those important projects?
It kind of makes you wonder, does the WHO rely too much on a few powerful countries? Is that a problem in itself?
It's a big question for sure. And it ties into that whole nation first idea that's been gaining traction, not just in the US, but in other high income countries too.
Oh, yeah, and we saw that play out during COVID, right?
Yeah.
All that criticism about the WHO's response being slow, bureaucratic, and maybe even a little too influenced by certain countries.
Right. And I mean, it's not like we can just ignore those criticisms. Maybe this is a chance for some serious reflection and change.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the wake-up call the WHO needed. Could this actually lead to a better, fairer global health system?
It could, and it all starts with acknowledging the problems, right? The pandemic really showed us how crucial it is to have a strong WHO, one that's transparent, equitable, and, actually capable of handling these global health challenges in a world that's constantly changing.
And, the Hindu actually threw out some interesting ideas for reform.
Hmm.
Like, what if the WHO was less centralized? Or if they had more diverse funding sources? Or even if the Global South had a bigger voice?
Yeah, those are some big what ifs. And they're not just theoretical either. They could have real impact. Like, take decentralization, for example.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, imagine instead of everything coming from headquarters, you have these regional WHO offices, and they have the power to make decisions on the ground, so they can react faster and really target their response to whatever's
Oh,
happening.
that's interesting. No more waiting for instructions from who knows where. You've got people on the ground making decisions based on what they see happening around them. That could be a game changer.
Right. And think about the funding side of things. What if, instead of depending on just a few big donors, the WHO could tap into a wider pool of resources?
Like from where?
Well, you could have global health bonds that anyone could invest in, or maybe even public-private partnerships that pull in expertise from all sorts of different areas. Build a financial system that's more stable and sustainable.
Now, this is what I call a deep dive. And for our UPSC folks, this is gold. Remember, you need to understand these problems, but also the potential solutions. That's how you nail those essay quotients. Depth and nuance, my friends. Depth and nuance.
Then all of this leads to a really crucial question. If the U.S. is stepping back, who's going to step up and fill that void? And you know what the Hindu suggests?
What's that?
It's a pretty bold idea, actually. They're talking about the rise of the global south.
Whoa, now that would be a major shift in the global landscape. I mean, think about it. What if global health wasn't dictated by a few rich countries, but reflected the needs and priorities of every country? Talk about a game changer.
It's more than just power dynamics, though. The global south brings so much to the table, all this expertise and experience from dealing with serious health challenges for, like, forever.
So not just potential donors, but problem solvers who've had to figure things out with, what, way fewer resources.
Exactly. They've been innovating, being resourceful, doing more with less. And maybe, just maybe, this U.S. withdrawal, which seems like a bad thing, ends up being a catalyst, forcing everyone to rethink old assumptions, shake up the power structures, and make room for new approaches, new leaders.
Okay, now I'm really interested. So let's play this out. The Global South steps up. The WHO actually reforms, becomes more inclusive, starts listening to everyone's needs. What does that even look like? Can you paint me a picture?
Okay, imagine a pandemic hits. But this time, No more slow, centralized response. Instead, you have this network of regional WHO offices ready to go. They're coordinating with local governments, sharing information fast, getting resources exactly where they're needed. No wasted time.
Wow. So no more waiting around for instructions from far away. Decisions are made on the ground by people who actually understand the local situation.
Hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
That could be way more efficient and effective.
Exactly. And because funding is coming from all these different places, not just one country, it becomes a truly global effort. Governments, private organizations, even everyday people could be contributing through things like, those global health bonds we talked about.
So it's less about reacting to every crisis and more about being prepared, right? Investing in healthcare systems in developing countries, training experts locally, making sure everyone have access to the medicines and vaccines they need. Is that what a fairer, more effective global health system could actually look like?
Absolutely. It's a total shift, going from reactive to proactive. And this is where the Global South's experience is so valuable, right? They've been doing this for years, finding ways to deliver quality healthcare, even when they don't have tons of money.
Okay, I have to say, this is all pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
It gives me hope for what global health could become. It feels like, I don't know, maybe a real paradigm shift is possible. But let's be
Yeah.
real, there are going to be challenges, right? Things that get in the way.
Of course, it's complicated. It's like a tangled web of issues, right?
Yeah.
And there will be people who benefit from the current system who will push back, try to keep things the way they are. Plus, politics always gets involved, and trying to get everyone on the same page globally is never easy.
And let's not forget, power dynamics are a big deal. People in power don't just give it up easily, right?
Very true. But if history teaches us anything, it's that change usually happens when the pressure for it becomes too much to ignore. And in a way, the U.S. pulling out has turned up the heat, right? It's like they've shined a spotlight on the problems with the current system, made it impossible to ignore them.
So how does all of this relate to you, our listeners, especially those of you prepping for the UPSC exams? What are the big takeaways here?
I think this whole U.S. withdrawal from the WHO, it's a perfect example of how global events can be seen from all of these different angles.
Right.
And for the UPSC, it's not just about, memorizing facts. It's about showing you can analyze those different perspectives, see the bigger picture, and come up with possible solutions.
It's like you're watching this major shift in global power happening right in front of you.
Yeah.
And you have to not only describe what you see, but also try to figure out where it's all going. We can't forget about the human side of this, right? It's not just some abstract game. It's about real people's lives, their health, their well-being.
Exactly. Imagine you get an essay question in your UPSC exams about the future of global health. Well, now you can talk about the U.S. withdrawal not just as a crisis, but as this potential turning point, a chance for a system that's actually fair and just for everyone.
Whoa, talk about a powerful essay.
Yeah.
But seriously, think about the depth you can bring to your answers now. You can talk about history, funding problems, the rise of nationalism, and how the Global South could take the lead all from this one event.
That's the kind of understanding that makes a UPSC candidate stand out, right? It shows you can grasp these complex issues, think critically, and come up with solutions that make sense.
So, wow, we covered a lot today. We talked about the U.S. leaving the WHO, the challenges, the need for change, and all those possibilities for the Global South. It's exciting.
It is. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. The future of global health, well, it's uncertain. But the decisions made in the next few years, they're going to affect billions of people all over the world. It's huge.
It does feel like we're at a crossroads, and which way we go will determine the future of global health for, generations to come. So as you keep studying for the UPSC, remember this event. It's not just a headline in the Hindu. It's a real-life example of how complex international relations can be, how important global health is, and how the balance of power is always shifting.
And don't just take our word for it. Keep digging into this topic, look at it from different sides, and come to your own conclusions.
That's what the deep dive is all about. Be sure to leave a comment below with your thoughts, hit that like button if you found this helpful, and subscribe for more deep dives into current events that are relevant to your UPSC journey. We're here to help you understand the world one headline at a time.